I think the biggest thing is leadership in this industry has caved. They've bended the knee, and they haven't stood up when they should have stood up. And they said, "Well, if we give a little on this reform, then they'll back off." No, it's the opposite. If you give a little on this reform, then they see the weakness, they see the crack, and then they go for it, and then they'll push harder and harder. Where we have just said, no, we're doing the job good and our guys do the job good, and we're not interested in those changes. And, we've shown people that our work. So we don't feel like if the community tells me we need to change, then I'll respond to that. But as far as politicians down at the state capitol thinking that they know what's best for the agency, having never done this job, I'm not about to just cater to them. And I think in law enforcement, had we stood the line a little bit better, had we held that line, when I go speak to cops, I always say, look, or I actually speak to leadership and tell them it wasn't the guys, the line level guys that didn't hold the line. It was the leadership in this country that failed to hold the line. You caved when you felt the pressure or the social pressures. You caved, and now the rest of us are paying the price for it. And so
Yeah.
I would just like to see stronger leadership stand up and say, no, this is what's best for the community and the agency. We're going to keep doing it the way we do it.
Amen, brother. I love that. I see some videos of you out and about. How often are you out there on the streets, sir?
I try to do about 10 hours a week on the road, try to get into the jail. I've not been as good about that as lately. But
Well, they stink. I don't blame you.
yeah, I try to do 5 hours in the jail and I try to get out 10 hours on the road. Typically, I'll do it on a Friday or um, one of the other nights. I do a lot of ride alongs with people. I give ride alongs away for charity events. People will donate on a ride along, and then I'll take the folks out on a ride along. I love it because it gets me out to see the guys. I show up on calls all the time. I'm out pulling traffic stops on the I-10. I try to stay active and give my guys. I say, look, I'm willing to do the job too, and the job that I'm asking you to do, I'm willing to still do it, and I think they appreciate that.
Yeah, I would prefer if when you're doing your traffic stops, if you find like, a DWI or whatever it is, just make sure you drop that in Frank's lap
Yeah.
and let him handle the arrest. I'm sure he'll love that and appreciate it.
Man, there are certain things nowadays that they things have changed. It's all computerized, like they do e-tracks tickets, all this stuff. So sometimes I do have to call the deputies in. I don't like to, catch fish and have my guys clean it.
Clean it, yeah.
But
I just
sometimes they're much more. And frankly, all of the DUIs nowadays, I was great at DUIs 12 years ago, 10 years ago, but when they were alcohol. Now, 70% of our DUIs are DUI drugs. I'm not a DRE. And so you have to call somebody in anyway to kind of process those DUIs. So sometimes when I find somebody, I'm like, oh, this guy's high or something. I got
yeah.
DRE over here. So I hate to be that guy, but sometimes I am the guy that catches it and has to have my guys.
Now, how I couldn't tell, I would shit my pants if all of a sudden I turn around and I see my chief or the sheriff as my backup. I'm like, what the hell? All right, got to mind my P's and Q's on this one.
No, they don't care. They see
They don't care.
me out there enough. I'm right there and with them, and
Yeah.
they're comfortable, so they do their job regardless of me standing there. They'll cuss at people right in front of me, and it's not. I let them do their job. Like I'm not there.
Yeah.
I'm there to just support them, and they know that. And you can feel when somebody's like, "Oh crap, the sheriff's here." The newer
Yeah.
get a little bit more of a pucker factor, but the guys have been doing the job all along. They're like, "Nah, sheriff comes out all the time."
Yeah. I got that feeling when you showed up on the podcast. I was like, oh shit, he's here. It's real. um, well, sir, I have hit just about everything that I can think of. The whole point that I wanted, especially for this episode, was I wanted cops to hear you. I wanted them to know the type of guy you are, and see how you lead, and I think we really nailed that. And then the other part was I wanted citizens to see and hear a perspective that doesn't get shared very often, and it doesn't get shared at this length of time. So, I mean, we're almost at an hour and a half, and we've nailed a lot of good stuff. But is there anything that I haven't mentioned that you think would be good that you wanted to get across?
No, I think for the civilians, it's important to understand. Don't listen to the media. Don't listen to the politicians. The optics of our profession are not always great. But I can tell you the majority of the men and women that put on this badge every day do an amazing job. The media likes to highlight those few mistakes sometimes we make, and sometimes they make good decisions look like mistakes. And the reality is that the percentage of sustained complaints amongst this profession is extremely low. We are much more efficient than the majority of the professions, and we have a much smaller margin of error. We get it, we understand it. But I would say that these men and women that go out and do it every day do a really good job, and the leaders try to weed out those ones that don't do a good job, and that we can see are problems on the horizon. And for all the law enforcement guys out there, man, just keep doing the job. We appreciate everything you do every day. I know I support you 100%, and I try to be a vocal voice, a loud voice supporting not just our local law enforcement, the men and women who do this job, but our federal partners like Border Patrol and CBP and ICE and the work they are doing under the situation they're in. Just thank you for all you do, guys. And look, there's a storm in this country. We got to go straight into it, the eye of the storm, and it'll pass. This too shall pass. The seas will calm eventually, and hopefully the leaders in your organizations will hold the helm during this storm.